You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley and Jake Mastroianni with you, wrapping up what started out to be a very promising series, a head-to-head battle against one of the best teams in baseball. The Atlanta Braves rushed out to a 2-0 lead in this four-game series, but they spend the last couple of days watching that lead and that opportunity to win this pivotal series slip through their fingers, and in somewhat lopsided fashion as well. We'll be getting into all of that as the Dodgers roared back to take the final two games of this wraparound four-game set and leave Atlanta with a split. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Head to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use the code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. Well, Jake, when last we spoke heading into the weekend, which was a busy one for the Braves as they started this thing out on Friday. They had wrapped all the way through Monday. Back-to-back impressive wins. The Braves got some very good starting pitching in this series, the thing that we know that they're going to need if they're going to win baseball games way more times than not, because you can't really lay it at the feet of the offense and expect it to be picked up and get where it needs to get. I guess I say all that to say they got a lot of the pitching that they needed, maybe not so much out of the bullpen the last couple of days, but the lack of offensive, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe just the presence of more futility for the offense is a better way to put it, really cost the Braves quite a bit chances to perhaps win this series.
Yeah, and chances were there. Certainly in the game on Monday night, you had plenty of chances early on, and the series started out so good, and the beginning half of that game on Friday, and then pretty much all game on Saturday, the at-bats just looked so good. Now, we talked about it after that game on Friday, but they just kind of got away from that in parts of these last two games and just not able to execute in those run scoring opportunities, something that they've struggled with all year long. But, at the end, you look back at it, it's a series split. If you would have told me that coming into the weekend, I'd have said that's probably fine, especially with the Braves played in that Reds game and in that national series, the finale there. But certainly with the way things started, you're definitely hoping for a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that's the expectation that comes with what the Braves have been doing over the past, 6 years especially. I mean, I still think even at this point, knowing how flawed this team is and knowing the problems that they have, particularly offensively, and sometimes it is self-imposed or self-inflicted with some really poor at-bats with runners in scoring position. We can talk about some of that. Obviously, this team is not at full strength, has lost a lot of key members, and that is going to play a factor in it as well. But at this point, you are who you are, and you have who you have, and the adjustments, whatever they may be, big or small, really don't seem to be happening at bat to at bat or situationally. And that, of course, is something that is very difficult to watch. It's difficult to watch. I mean, Chipper Jones talked about this about a week ago in that case, and he's not alone in that, because I know a lot of Braves fans have just kind of wondered, what can be different? What can be done differently? What is there that the Braves can do to, it's not turn it back into the most potent offense in baseball, but goodness gracious. I mean, you get leadoff runners on 4 consecutive innings on Monday, including a leadoff triple. You got a single and a double. I mean, a runner got thrown out at the plate in one of those two scenarios. We can talk about it later. But, Jake, like you said, the opportunities were very much there. The Braves have not been able to figure out the small things that they could do to help manufacture some runs.
They have not. And look, 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position in the first 4 innings. I'm sure that's happened before, but not too often. That is pretty impressive in a very bad way for the Atlanta Braves. So, I mean, plenty of chances. And you have to wonder at this point, Grant, is it getting into their heads a little bit? Or are guys getting outside of themselves? And I know we've talked about some of that throughout this season, but you almost see it now when guys come up there, and it's up and down. A lot of people are going to pick on Sean Murphy and Orlando Arcia for their at-bats after the leadoff triple, but we've seen it with Ozuna at the plate, with Olsen, others at the plate. I mean, it's been up and down. Guys coming up in those situations where, it's not just runners in scoring position, it's runners at third with less than 2 outs, and it feels like they just come outside of themselves, and you could almost see it, in some of those at-bats with Murphy and Arcia in particular. It's like they want to make something happen on the first or second pitch. They don't want to get to 2 strikes. Like they don't trust themselves in that situation to put up a good at bat and put the ball in play and get a productive out. It's just, again, it's happened all season long, and things happen that much. At some point, I think it starts to trickle into the psyche of a player.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I talked to Austin Riley about this, and that's been probably 3-4 months ago. Really, when the month of May came along and the Braves offense started to dry up, and it wasn't just a week or 2 weeks or a couple of series, it dragged on and on and on. And clearly, we're still kind of feeling that here with less than 2 weeks to go in the month of September. But he said, yeah, I mean, everybody can feel that, and everybody wants to be the guy that gets the hit that turns things around in that inning or that game or that series. And that's to be expected. I mean, it's not a matter of like nobody cares, but the approach and the execution overall leaves a lot to be desired in some cases. I mean, we saw a lot of that on Saturday night, which was a game that, and let's just be honest, it ended up being very lopsided. It's not like the Dodgers snuck a run across and were able to sneak through a couple of wins. I mean, they turned their offense on and they took advantage of their opportunities. The Braves simply weren't able to do that on Friday in the ninth inning where things went bad. And then, of course, over the course of the game on Sunday where everything went bad. And then, of course, on Monday where stuff went poorly as well. The last 10 innings of this series, you could really, chalk up as a major letdown for this club. And a lot of that, obviously, is going to be on the offense. There were a couple of bullpen issues as well. One, when you're already losing the game, it's, to me, I mean, it just adds insult to injury maybe, or insult to insult. But, the way things slipped away on Sunday was probably the most disappointing loss of the two that the Braves suffered in the last 24 or so hours.
Yeah, that one, the one on Sunday, definitely stings a little bit more than the one on Monday. Although the one on Monday, obviously, you were losing 3-0 by the time you handed it over to the bullpen. If things, played out differently, you probably go to some different arms there. And then the game just kind of got away from them as they went to some of their, 7, 8, 9 guys in the bullpen at that point. But the one on Sunday, I mean, you had a lead late. Yes, it was a 1-run lead. You let things not just get away from you, but then just add on. Not only do you let them tie it up, but then you let them pull away, so where you really have no chance even in the bottom of the ninth in that one. And like, I know we're going to end up coming back around to it at some point, but in both of these games, you look what happened in the eighth inning, the bottom of the eighth inning on Sunday night. The offense has a great run scoring opportunity. They don't capitalize. Dodgers come back and they do. And in this game, in the bottom of the fourth inning, you had a great chance to push a run across. You don't. And what do the Dodgers do? They come right back and score 2 of their own. It's just that momentum switch too that comes with not scoring runs. And then on the other side, the other team just capitalizing off that momentum.
Yeah, they have. I mean, and I'm not going to be one of those people that sits here and tells you that it's the easiest thing in the world to hit some of the pitchers that they're facing. I mean, clearly it's very difficult, but it just seems like in a lot of cases, and I think this is what really gets people worked up, is the overall look and feel of it is like there is no plan going on. The wild swings, the big swings. I mean, yeah, I played Little League as well, and, you wanted to choke up and put the ball in play. That's not really where they're at this point, but it doesn't mean that that's completely absent from the game or should be absent from the overall approach of a hitter. I guess what I'm saying is it is probably a little more complicated than we're making it out to be, but kind of to go back to what you were talking about, and I think this is part of the deal, it's definitely ingrained in their psyche that they've missed a lot of opportunities this year, that runs are hard to come by, and I think that there is a pressure that's going to be built into that as well. So none of that is to, excuse the lack of performance, because clearly, you got to outscore the other guys, and the Braves just simply aren't able to do that, regardless of who they have in the lineup 1 through 9. And I'm not really sure that there's much of a shuffle that would really change anything about the way it's going. You're just not getting the job done, whatever shape or form that it's coming in. They've simply got to figure out a way to do it better. And I mean, I joked on social media, maybe every once in a while with a runner at third and nobody out or one out, hey, just drop down that bunt and have that guy head home and just see what happens if you got the right runner on, because it can't hurt. Just based on what we're seeing is not happening way too many times.
And it's something that, this offense, and I know it's a lot of new guys, obviously, with a lot of injuries, but something this offense hasn't had to do. What was it, a couple of years ago? They had 1 sack bunt all year long.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an offense, we talked about it, it's built on slug and swinging for the fences. This is not something that they've had to do. And again, they're professionals. You would feel like they'd be able to kind of change up that approach and be able to do that. But also to your point, it's not that easy as we, might believe that it is for, facing major league pitchers, and you're facing a guy in Michael Kopech, and he's all over the place, but he's throwing 100, 101. You got to gear up for that. And so it is tough, but at some point in this season, you feel like you got to do something else to try to score in these situations. And again, it just feels like that pressure is getting up. And, again, I don't want to keep piling on to Sean Murphy. I know he came up in a big spot tonight, but earlier before in that game, he had a double of Yamamoto and a good at bat. And next at bat, again, it just seems like he comes out of himself swinging wildly at the first 2 pitches thrown that aren't even in the strike zone. And it's one of those things where you can see it in those spots. As you said, everybody wants to come up with that big hit. And because of that, it just feels like they're getting out of their game plan. They're getting out of their approach, and it's leading to some bad swing decisions.
Yeah, and that approach is just not whatever it is not calibrated to where they're able to, I think, take control of the at bat. And I know obviously the pitcher has the ball. He's going to have a lot of control over what goes on, no pun intended, but swinging wildly outside of the strike zone, especially, has been the over aggressiveness has been part of the problem for the Braves at the very least. Now, the offense, it isn't getting the key hits. It's not putting the ball in play. It wasn't doing the job with runners in scoring position and even no outs, which is a sad theme because, as I mentioned, leadoff man was on each of the first 4 innings. You had a walk and a double in the first. You had a double in the second. You had a single and another double in the 3rd inning. Michael Harris, the second, was thrown out at home. Then, of course, you had the leadoff triple in the 4th. And again, I just kind of said, this is the Braves. Nobody out runner at 3rd. Please score a run challenge. And nobody has really been able to come through. And it doesn't matter what the name on the back of the uniform is. It's just not happening at the rate that it needs to be, or consistently even from day to day. Let's at least put it that way for this offense. And as a result, Braves shut out for the 11th time this season. Jake, all of those have happened since the start of June. And the Braves, prior to that, had gone over a season's worth of games without being shut out. This simply is not the offense that it needs to be right now. There's really no two ways about it. We're up against it right now. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more, obviously, about what didn't happen for the Braves offense, and we need to talk about what was going on the mound, because throughout the course of this series, the Braves starters did their job. We'll talk about that next on the Braves Postcast. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something different for you today, because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook today. Well, let's look inside the line score and box score of one of the more bizarre games that you're going to see, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. And if you're a Braves fan who watched this game, you might already know, but I'll get to it here when I talk about the Dodgers, who went 89-61 after their win and splitting this series. Braves now 81-69 on the season, taking this loss by a 9-0 score. Dodgers scored 9 runs on 4 hits, 1 error, and 3 men left on base for the Dodgers. The Braves were shut out on 4 hits, and they made no errors, left 7 men on base, and as Jake mentioned earlier, 0 for with runners in scoring position, 0 for 12 in this game by the time all was said and done. The winner in this one is Phillips. He came on in relief of Yamamoto, who went the first 4 innings. The loser is Max Fried, drops to 9-10. I would qualify this as a tough luck loss, and we might as well start with that and then back our way into the real fun time, which is trying to pick apart what was or was not working for the Braves offense from inning to inning. But Fried, in this one, another great start for him. 6 innings, 3 earned runs, just 2 hits. He did walk 3 and struck out 7. A run scored on a wild pitch. There was another softly hit single that scored a 2nd run. I thought Max looked pretty good overall. I know he'd point at the walks and say that's a thing I don't want to have happen. The wild pitch, I feel like, was just some misfortune. Some very good base running by Rojas to come on home as soon as that ball got away from home plate. But either way, this was a theme, and we can talk about this more in just a moment once we're done with Fried. Another quality start, at the very least, puts you in position to win a game, but you got to lay this one at the feet of the offense and say, you got to do something there.
Yeah, I mean, you're facing an offense in the Dodgers. You're going to have to score some runs. The starting pitching in this series did all that it could to help the Braves offense have a chance to win all 4 of these games, quite honestly, and they just weren't able to get it done. And Max Fried on this night, again, is able to get the job done and do that, go deep into the game and give the offense a chance that, I think, as you alluded to, you ask him, the one that's probably frustrates him the most is that walk that came around to score on the wild pitch. It's just one of those things you can't let happen. You can't walk a guy at the bottom of the order there and give him a free base too, a free 90 feet as well, just not paying much attention there. And then the wild pitch to score him in. It's just those little things, with this team. This team's not good enough to not be able to make sure that you're taking care of those little things as well to keep runs off the board. And as you mentioned, just a great play by Rojas. I mean, he was gone when he saw the ball in the dirt. He didn't even look to see how far it kicked away. He was gone right when he saw it going in the dirt. So just a great play by him. And that's some of the little things that you got to do to score runs that the Braves just aren't doing But again, don't take away from what Max Fried did on this night. I thought he was great. Again, going up against that very talented lineup in the Dodgers to hold them down for 6 innings and to give your team a chance and keep you in the game. Max Fried, delivered once again.
Yeah, he did that. He kind of worked into and out of trouble the little bit that he needed to. Were you surprised? And and now everyone out there can know, I was actually at the game with my wife, with my family, watching from the stand. So the play at second base on Rojas, were you surprised that wasn't challenged? Did you get a better look at that than I did? Because I know that there were some, at least, that were kind of wondering why the Braves wouldn't at least try to see if Rojas maybe was out at second base. The grounder to first, Olsen wasn't able to handle it cleanly, stepped on the bag, throw down to second, meant that it was no longer a force out. Was there something to that, or was there really not anything to challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's close. It's also that situation early in the game. Do you take a chance on the replay? You feel like the Braves haven't done that a lot this year, especially, like I said, early in the game. So it's one of those that probably could go either way, and it's most likely, with the Braves replay history, going to go with what was called on the field.
Yeah, they have done a little bit better, it feels like, in 2024, which that's the weird thing. The Braves are doing better on replay challenges and extra innings than they ever have.
But they're just not calling as many. They're not taking a lot of challenges either. So
there's a lot of that. And that is a big thing. And I know a lot of folks will jump on the manager about that, but it's kind of out of Brian Snitker's hands. I mean, if it's obvious, then maybe he's going to jump the gun and go ahead and pull the trigger on it. But really, he relies on the replay room to let him know if this is worth a challenge. And clearly, with Major League Baseball, you have to make that determination very quickly. And then we get to sit around, look at it, and maybe get a few more looks on our phone when the play has already passed and they've had to kind of move on. But either way, I don't think that's the one play that won or lost this game for either side. But it did obviously happen in the midst of the Dodgers getting on the board early against Fried. They added 2 more in the 5th inning against him. And then things just went sideways in the 7th inning. Daysbel Hernandez came in and just didn't have it for whatever reason. 3 walks that turned into 3 earned runs scored against him. Aaron Bummer as well came on, had some trouble getting the Dodgers to, I guess, just go quietly and try to put out that fire, so to speak. 3 earned runs, the Freddie Freeman home run, obviously the big hit against Aaron Bummer, who was brought in to face Shohei Ohtani when it looked like and felt like very much that this game was about to careen out of hand. And that is, in fact, exactly what happened in that 6-run 7th inning for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, tough spot for Aaron Bummer to come in there, and he gets the ground ball when he comes in, and tries to make the play at home. And I understand you got to try to take that risk. You're already down 3-0. You can't give up too much more. But obviously, it kind of led to a bigger inning for the Dodgers there. Daysbel's a good young pitcher. I think he's going to have some good years in a Braves uniform in the bullpen, but he's got to get obviously the command issues under control. But electric stuff. But unfortunately, you just can't come in there walking a bunch of hitters.
No, you certainly can't. And I think at that point, and with Ohtani's speed, you're not going to double him up too easily. So there wasn't really a double play option to have. I'm with you. I go home and see what I can do there. But honestly, again, we pick apart plays that have nothing to do with the outcome of the game in the larger sense, because you have to score in order for there to be the opportunity to win the baseball game. The Braves quite simply didn't do that. 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. You mentioned 10 of those coming in the first 4 innings. The Braves offense had a lot of opportunity there, obviously early on, and weren't able to do much. I did want to talk about this, though, because what Max Fried did was part of a larger run of success for the Braves starting rotation, which has been doing this for quite a while, honestly, all season. 4 earned runs across 24 innings with 25 combined strikeouts for Spencer Schwellenbach, Chris Sale, Charlie Morton, and Max Fried, all of whom pitched at least 6 innings. In fact, exactly 6 innings in each of those starts. This, I think, speaks to it, Jake. And you look at this series as maybe a microcosm of that. Even against a tough team like the Dodgers, the starting rotation kept the Braves in this. Can they find a way to score enough runs to have some success in the postseason would be the question, because if they can get this rotation there, and this is without Reynaldo Lopez, mind you, they've got some arms.
Yeah, it's the conversation we've been having for a couple of weeks now, is if you can get into the postseason, which is an if at this point, as they're starting a game out, this starting rotation is good enough to keep you in games and give you a chance to win. But is this offense going to give them the opportunity to do that? Are they going to be able to score enough to get them to the postseason? Then obviously, once you get there, they're going to be able to score enough. But again, it's hopefully not going to be something that we look back on this season where we say this pitching staff, was one of the better pitching staffs we've had in a while, and it was wasted because of all the injuries on offense and just the inability to score enough runs for them. But certainly this pitching staff has proven all year long that it is good enough to go up against the better lineups in baseball and give you a chance to win.
Yeah, I'll ask this, even though I know you nor I are going to have the answer for it. But ultimately, there have been too many empty at bats and missed opportunities offensively. Maybe they have a game or two where that isn't the case, but then it seems to revert more times than not. What can be done is a pretty good question, because ideally, 3 to 4 guys per night in this lineup wouldn't be there if things were going the Braves way, the way that they wanted it to, according to plan, whatever you want to call that. But I really don't feel like there's much else you can do with this batting order. There's not somebody sitting on the bench that should be starting. I don't really know that changing the order of it's going to do a whole lot. To use that phrase again that I hate to use, but I will anyway. It just kind of feels like you're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, offensively speaking. You've already struck that iceberg. The injuries have already taken their effect and their hold overall, though there may be some hope in the not too distant future about having somebody come back in and maybe help the Braves. But even that is questionable as far as Ozzie Albies is concerned.
I mean, Grant, you're putting a guy out there on a broken foot right now because you feel like he's giving you some good at bats. I mean, that's where the Braves lineup is. Again, I don't know how you shuffle this thing around to try to give you more offense. You're finally getting Jorge Soler going, and now Ozuna is a little bit, off at the moment. Certainly not giving the power, showing the power that we've seen. He's in a little bit of a power slump, and it's tough. It's tough. We talked about it all year long. For this offense to score, they really have to look for the long ball, and you didn't get it in the last couple of games of this series and weren't able to put enough runs on the board. And there's not enough consistent depth up and down this lineup to string together 2, 3, 4 hits in an inning to just push across a run or two. It's just not something this lineup is built to do. So it's tough. And like you said, nobody knows the answer. If we did, obviously they would have done something by now, but I don't think shaking up the lineup or doing anything is really going to help too much at this point. You're playing the best that you have. What you're putting out there is the best that you have, and it's just not enough.
No, it hasn't been far too many nights. The pitching has made it enough in a lot of ways. It's propped it up, but what can they do, and can they figure out a way to at least be a little bit more consistent? That remains the question that has gone from being a when they do to an if they do at this point of the year, based on the sample size we're talking about over this final couple of weeks. I mean, the Braves are sitting here with 12 games remaining between themselves and the potential of playing in October if they can punch their ticket. We'll talk a little bit more about that and give you an update on what to expect from Ozzie Albies, who's heading out on a rehab assignment with AAA Gwinnett. How soon could he be back? We'll discuss as the Braves Postcast continues. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. And you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks and turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available from coast to coast in more than 30 states from California to Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You get a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, on the Prize Picks app for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy when you download Prize Picks today. Well, there is a little bit of other news to talk about as far as the Braves are concerned. But before we get to that, I guess we should talk about the wild card. The Mets outlasted the Nationals by a 2-1 score in extras on Monday. So the Braves, once again, are 1 game out for the 3rd wild card. Of course, we know those teams, all 4 of those teams, the Padres and the Diamondbacks, the Braves and the Mets, or the Mets and the Braves in the case of this order as it is right now, all separated by typically about 3 to 4 games in the standings. The Padres have now gotten hot, so they have pushed their way back to the top. The Diamondbacks have slid back a little bit here just in the past 3 or 4 days. But as we know, all of that can be subject to change. Jake, on my show, I went through and kind of mapped out what everybody is dealing with. The interesting thing is not only do the Braves and Mets play in the next to last game of the season, the Padres and Diamondbacks finished the season with a 3-game series head-to-head. So this wild card thing, top to bottom, 1 through 3, is far from decided here with 12 games to go.
It is, and obviously, the Padres and Diamondbacks playing at the end of the year. The way the Padres are going right now and the way the Diamondbacks are, it might not mean much at the end of the season. We'll see, obviously, how the next couple weeks shake out. But certainly, I think a lot of people are looking to that Mets-Braves series. I know Braves fans are. It feels like the winner of that series, you got another series after that, is maybe going to get that final wild card spot. But a lot to be determined. Obviously, like you said, all very close there and a tight race. And it's one of the better races left in Major League Baseball. You look around the rest of it, maybe you got the Tigers pushing for that 3rd wild card spot in the American League now, but most of the division races are pretty much wrapped up. So everybody looking to these last couple wild card spots in each league.
Well, the Braves have 12 games remaining now that they're done with this 4-game series with the Dodgers. They'll go to Cincinnati and play 3. Then they'll head to Miami and play 3. That's the final road trip of the regular season. After that, it is that battle with the New York Mets, a 3-game series. And then it's not going to be a cakewalk in the final series of the season. The Braves have 3 against the Kansas City Royals, another playoff hopeful. So that's going to be a challenge for them. The Mets and the Phillies still have to do some more battling before that series. They've got, 4 more games are going to be happening, I believe, at Citizens Bank Park. Either way, it's 4 head-to-head. That is going to be happening before the Mets roll into town. So the Braves can hope, and whatever else you want to call it, that the Phillies might help them out a little bit in the road to get there. But Atlanta's got to handle its own business, and they're in a prime spot here again, Jake. We talked about that last homestand where they had the Rockies and they had the Blue Jays, and then they had one with the Reds. Well, now you go out and play a couple of under 500 teams. I know Cincinnati can be pretty plucky. They've already taken 3 games from the Braves in as many tries this year. But that Miami Marlins series, that's another one that if you wanted to make up some time, make up some ground, and maybe make up for some missed opportunities, you got to do some serious work over the next 6 games to get that done and have yourself in the position you need to be in when the Mets come to town about a week from now.
Yeah, this is the chance for the Braves. I mean, we talked about already with the stretch they had earlier that you just mentioned, but here you are, a game out of a postseason spot. You got 6 games coming up against teams below 500, and then you face the team directly in front of you. So obviously these next 9 games are going to be very crucial for the Braves. You got to take care of business this week, something they haven't done a great job of this year. But if you can do that going into that Mets series and either be, tied with them or hopefully a game in front, give you a little bit of cushion going into that one, you feel pretty good about your chances at home with the Braves pitching staff. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we can talk about how close the race is. The Braves have it in front of them. It's all up to them. How are they going to play in these next 9 to 12 games, whether or not they're going to get into the postseason?
Yeah, it's all going to come down here to this final, less than 2 weeks worth of action as the Braves will try to do what they need to do against some teams below 500, then have that head-to-head opportunity against the Mets, and then a little bit of a battle on their hands with the Kansas City Royals. So it's a little bit of both extremes on the schedule for the Braves, but you're right. I mean, you have to concentrate on what you can do. There'll be some scoreboard watching, certainly, that will go on here over the final 12 games, but really, it's having your house in order. It's going to be the first big step towards getting there for the Atlanta Braves. Ozzie Albies, speaking of getting there, is heading down to Jacksonville, where he'll join the Gwinnett Stripers and go on a rehab assignment for the next couple of days. Talking to both Ozzie Albies and Brian Snitker here when this series began. Obviously, we touched on this Friday. There were a little bit of will he, won't he, as far as starting that rehab assignment. The answer is yes, he will. Ozzie expects to be back sooner than later. Could be back, I guess, in time for either late in the Cincinnati series or at the very least that Marlins series that is happening down in Florida. Seems like that might make the most sense, though, if he's going to be down in Jacksonville anyway. I know he's coming back as a right-handed hitter only. That's what it sounds like. No lefty swinging for now. As you mentioned earlier, the Braves have a second baseman playing on a broken foot. I've seen some questions in some circles of, is bringing him back really going to help the club? Jake, at this point, I don't see what it could possibly hurt because what you got going on right now ain't doing the job a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm skeptical of it as well. A guy that hasn't played in 2 months, he's coming back and swinging from one side of the plate, which most batters do, but obviously Ozzie swings a lot from the left-hand side, facing a lot of righties. But either way, I mean, like you said, what worse could it be right now? You're getting a guy back in Ozzie who is at least an all-star, obviously very good hitter, and somebody that's been a big part of this lineup. So might as well roll the dice, see what he can do. I guess I'm more worried about the defensive side of things. Honestly, where Witt's been pretty solid over there at second base, but obviously nowhere else you're going to put Ozzie but at second base. Maybe you can move Witt around a little bit, try to keep him in the lineup. But yeah, I mean, might as well take a chance on Ozzie. Hopefully he can come back and help get this offense going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about sticking Witt Merrifield like in the outfield or things like that. I mean, I know he'll do it. I would hate to ask him to run around even that much more, covering a lot of ground like that. And plus, I feel like that would take Ramon Laureano out of the lineup, which he may not have done a ton here lately, but I think Laureano has been one of the more consistent options at the very least for the Braves, and that would seem to be at least a bit counterintuitive, but I don't manage a Major League Baseball team, so what do I know? I will say this though about Ozzie Albies. I mean, he means a lot to this club. I mean, having him out there, I mean, it's more than just a figurehead kind of thing. I mean, he has been been a part of this club for some of the biggest moments that they've had, and I think they are better with him, but yeah, it's not the ideal scenario to bring him back with very little time to ramp back up, but that's the situation the Braves find themselves in. Grant Holmes will be starting on Tuesday at Cincinnati. It's his 5th start of the year. We'll see what he can do. I was a little surprised maybe there wasn't any thought of another starting pitching move, considering that, Holmes on the depth chart wouldn't necessarily strike me as the best overall option to start a game. But again, I don't manage a Major League Baseball team, and those decisions are obviously made organizationally by multiple people. Holmes is 2-1 with a 3.79 ERA on the year. Brandon Williamson, the lefty, will be on the hill for the Cincinnati Reds. 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time first pitch on Tuesday at Great American Ballpark. I'll throw this out there. Holmes, a 1.06 ERA in his first 8 games, 5.02 ERA in his last 14, including all 4 of his starts, in which he is 1-0 with a 4.57 ERA in 21 2/3 innings. He's not a bad arm. It's just kind of one of those that I was just maybe a little bit surprised, although it is the middle of a pennant race, and he's been part of some good moments for the Braves as well. Maybe this is just 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, and nostalgia is not really going to take you very far if you're talking about an Ian Anderson start, which they would have to burn an option on, obviously, or AJ Smith-Shawver, and I don't know too many people that are yearning for another Bryce Elder start, but there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not what I thought. I thought we would see Ian Anderson come up and make this start. He's been throwing pretty well at Gwinnett, but we'll see what Grant Holmes can do. It's going to be one of those games, Grant, where you're going to need the offense to step up. You're facing Brandon Williamson, gets a lot of fly balls in a ballpark that gives up a lot of home runs. So hopefully we can see the offense get going and get some of the long ball coming back again, because you might need them in this one.
Yeah, well, Grant Holmes will get game 1, Spencer Schwellenbach in game 2, and Chris Sale in game 3 against the Cincinnati Reds as they open up that 3-game series at Great American Ballpark on Tuesday at 6:40, game 1 of 3. That's going to bring us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube and leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, the Braves fall well short of the Dodgers in the final 2 games, have to settle for a bit of a bitter split of that 4-game set. They'll get back in action against the Cincinnati Reds this week, and Jake and I will be back in action this week here on the channel as well. Until then, for Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. So long, everyone.